Whatever, any questions you got, I'm good.
Well, I was going to bring up the video that I sent you a while back, a week or two ago, that was from Baden-Baden, Germany.
Yeah.
And I noticed in that video that Arnold and Rosemary were there.
Yeah.
You were there. JT was there.
Carlos Vega, I think, was playing.
Carlos Vega, who was the...
Dan Dugmore would have been playing
Dan
guitar.
Dugmore guitar, and then the guy from Little Feat playing...
Billy Payne.
Bill Payne, right.
Yeah.
And I was going to ask you, given the time that was around 86, was that a time that you feel like the band was really undergoing a lot of change since there was a lot of different people on that tour?
Yeah, I mean, it got different, you know, when Russ was suddenly gone. Yeah, I think for us, the real peak of it was that Blossom concert from '78. I think that was James at the height of his powers on that show.
Right.
And then things started changing. I mean, God, I love playing with Carlos. And, you know, it's like, but so many different drummers like Rick Schlosser and Rick Murata and all these different drummers came through. And then, you know, Bob Mann was playing guitar, and then when Dugmore was there too, and then Grolnick came back in. I mean, the music is the music, and but there was an energy that was there that to me has slightly dissipated over the years. I think the thing that I loved so much about that band in '78 was when you watch it, it is nothing but eye contact. Everybody's playing off of each other, and just it's this machine. That
like
was
a nod and a wink.
Yeah, and when I see them all nowadays, it's kind of like everybody's got their own place, and it's very kind of comfortable. And we were never comfortable. It was like, you know, just kicking ass all the time.
Yeah.
But I really enjoyed that. That was a really nice gig there. My best memory of that was there was a park right outside there, and it was a time of year where like crocus were all coming up through the lawn, and there was a fantastic birdhouse that was probably as big as a Volkswagen. There was just this beautiful wooden thing that was mounted in the middle of the park with like hundreds of, you know, little nesting areas inside of it. And just before we went to work, just sitting in this park going, this is spectacular. Saw a few people in Lederhosen, you know, here in the Black Forest there.
Yeah.
So, but that was great. But, you know, almost everything brings back great memories. Going to Montserrat to record and all the different things we did over the years were, they're pretty indelibly etched in my memory. My memory banks, I can't speak, but are pretty intact. You know, having not done anything to disrupt them, so which disturbs a lot of the cats too.
Right.
So they go, "Oh, that was that thing." I go, "Oh, I remember," and they go,
Oh, God.
"Don't tell me."
What did I do?
Yeah. Well, if I would have had this phone, I would have had pictures.
That's right.
Just to show.
I was interested in that question because it's interesting to me to understand kind of the genealogy of a band.
Yeah.
And the interconnectivity between members of a band and another band and where they all came from and went.
It's quite a family tree if you really broke it down into that, the directions.
And also how that eventuality, you know, where at that point in 1986 you had at least 3 people that weren't in the band anymore from the old days.
Yeah. Yeah, Waddy, Cooch, Craig, they were all gone from it. Clarence McDonald wasn't there.
Russ.
There was quite a few people had moved on, and it's kind of the nature of the beast. Of, you know, people's lives change, and so. But it's interesting. Like I just saw a thing recently. It was a picture from one of James's shows, and he was holding up a set list for the second half of the show, and I'm looking at this and going, other than 2 songs, it's all the stuff we played. There, you know, it's like, and when it was real interesting when we did the Troubadour reunion tour to put the original band from the Troubadour back together again. Was really, it's one of those things, I've said it many times, there's that old adage that you can't go home.
Right.
And we got to go home, and home was really cool. It was great. As soon as we started playing, it's as though we had been playing the other day. songs fell right into place. Everybody's parts going.
Do you think that that's also an indication of the quality of the musicians as well as the time that you spent together?
I think it all comes together at that point. Yeah, I mean, certainly everybody was, playing, and pretty much still is playing at the top of their game. It's not like, there's so many times like when bands come back together for like a reunion tour, and you go, shit, guy's been working at Home Depot for 10 years and he hasn't dieted or anything, and you see, and they're trying to be with that, but their chops aren't there. Well, we've been lucky that everybody has maintained what they do, even though they may have changed, different artists like me going off, doing Toto or doing Véronique Sanson or doing whatever. Always, Judith Owens, staying busy with other artists. But I always feel that I'd say my chops are pretty much intact with whatever I get called for. And I think the other guys all treat it the same way too, so that when we get together, it looks older, but it doesn't sound older. It actually will sound more mature because everybody's playing with a more of a maturity than they did back, 40, 50 years ago.
By that time, I think everybody has figured out the tricks that they use and, the things, the little flourish or whatever that they put in the music that, their favorite flourish. Or,
yeah. Well, now you know how to place them rather than just throwing them out there and hoping you don't get in the way. Because I listen to some of the early stuff. Like I'll listen to the original Hey Mister, That's Me up on the jukebox, or You've Got a Friend, and I go, I play it so much simpler now. But it's not that I couldn't play it that way. I just think the way I play it now is more respective of the song. And that's really the most critical thing to me.
Do you think that had in any way had to do with the fact that you have mentioned before that James played his own bottom end and that you were sort of left finding something that would complement that? Do you think that had something to do with it?
It had a huge impact. If I would have started off with a guy who was like just kind of playing guitar like that, or just a real simple finger picking, my demand on me would have been quite different. But James has one of the most profoundly unique guitar styles, and that thumb is constantly playing bass lines. And I sat there and I kind of went, what am I going to do? Because this guy's got it covered. And there were times that just doubling him and staying in his pocket there was right. But there were other times where that afforded me the opportunity to do something maybe a little bit more melodic, because I knew that area was going to be covered. So we could kind of, it was, with James, it's more really like a dance with him. You're not just bass and he's guitar.
That was a contrast to it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And it was evident from the first second we played together that we were going to have to. And we figured it out totally unconsciously. It wasn't like it was something discussed like, well, you got to stay out of my way here because this is, I think the thing that's the most important aspect of what guys like me do, I think your most important feature is listen to each other. And not just, it's, I'm not in there just to play bass. I'm in there to interact with what's going on. So like usually if I come out on a tour like this, I know what everybody's playing on every song. I'm completely aware of things, and I know where not to play because I know this is going to be a featured moment for them. And so, but it really is all about listening. It's not about you. And if all that's ever needed from me at any given time is a whole note, I'm great with a whole note. That's not a chop. That's not like, God, because I've had people, I've seen comments where they go, how come he's got this reputation? God, what he's doing, like he's not doing much. But I totally get it. Well, I totally get it because they're sitting there watching video after video of chops monsters that are just sitting there.
Victor.
But, well, I mean, Victor's musical, but there's a lot of guys that are just out there, and it's all about chops. And one thing I always I don't complain about it, but I make note of it sometimes, is I never see anybody do a video of how to create a bass line for a song. I can see you guys looking like you're at a booth at the NAMM show trying to draw people's attention. But, a song it requires listening and figuring out the nuances and how do I fit into that to be supportive and be that bottom end.
Complimentary.
Yeah. I remember Hal Blaine told me a story once, I may have mentioned it before, where he did a gig down in San Diego and there was a young bass player on the gig. And this guy whipped it all out. He just, man, was all night just laying it out like this. And at the end of the evening, he came up to Hal and said, "So, what do you think?" And Hal looked at him. I said, "I think we need a bass player."